Hi, I'm kchoi. Welcome to my channel. Notice anything a little different? I got my braces off. Before you get too excited, this is not my final smile. I still need to get 2 dental implants, but I'm done with the braces portion of my treatment and I should be done with the implant stuff very, very soon. I never got a chance to film this kind of video when I had braces on, but I thought better late than never. I wanted to share my braces story, why I got braces, and then answer a few questions that I've been asked in relation to my braces. So I'll just start with an introduction and explain why I got braces. So it's a long story actually. Check the description box for timestamps of the different topics I'll be covering, so yeah, you can like pick and choose what interests you. I got my braces in May 2015, so I was 24 at the time, but my braces and like teeth smile story begins much before that. Back in like middle school or maybe like 9th grade or so, I had to have a root canal on a molar. It was an upper right molar, and that tooth actually happened to be a baby tooth. Something you should know about my teeth, I have several baby teeth because I just wasn't born with the adult teeth to push them out, so I just have maintain those teeth. So that upper right molar that I had to get a root canal on back when I was like 14 was a baby tooth, but it happened to have very strong roots, so they decided that it was worth it to do a root canal on it and just preserve the tooth as best as they could. So I did that, and then that was fine for many, many years. Fast forward to 2012, I was in Bristol studying abroad for a semester, and I had bought Subway, Subway sandwiches for lunch one day, and I had a cookie. And I bit into the cookie and that whole tooth just chipped. That tooth that I had the root canal on. Basically, like all of the tooth except for the root was gone. I had gotten like fillings and gotten it refilled several times over the years, so it was worn down a bit. It wasn't just like all of a sudden it chipped off. But anyway, I was basically toothless there. I still had the root, so it's not like my teeth would move around. I went to a dentist over there in Bristol and I got like kind of like a temporary filling just to make sure that it was all smooth and everything. But I was left with a gap there in the, back of my mouth for quite a while. In 2014, I finally decided to look into getting an implant for that tooth because I was just living with a gap there. So I went to this dentist and got a consultation for an implant. Sorry, I have like hair stuck on my face. Went to get my consultation. They took a full x-ray of my mouth, which I had actually never gotten before because when I was younger, I just didn't want to get braces, so that's why I never got braces as a teenager. But they did the full x-ray because they have to make sure that your bone structure is all sound before you get an implant. They found several things. One was the bone structure there was too thin, so they wouldn't even be able to put an implant, so they would probably just need to close that gap. Second thing they found was one of my baby teeth that I thought did not have an adult counterpart actually did have an adult tooth. It's this baby canine. You might have never noticed it. A lot of people don't notice it until I point it out, and then they're like, oh my god, like how did I not notice that? I have, you can see here, the tiny tooth right there. So that is my canine. That's a baby tooth, and I thought my whole life that I just didn't have the adult tooth because a couple of my molars, they don't have adult teeth. So I thought that it was the same case for that canine, but it turns out the adult tooth was just impacted, and if my baby tooth was growing like this, the adult tooth was growing like this way, like perpendicularly to the actual baby tooth. It was also really high up, so that's why it never came down and pushed out the baby tooth. So 1, bone is not strong enough here to have an implant. 2, there's an impacted tooth there that I need to get rid of. So essentially the only solution was to get braces. And by getting braces, I could close that gap up. I could open up the gap around the baby tooth to make space for an adult canine, and in that process I would also have to get surgery to remove the adult canine that was stuck up there. Have you been following along? I'm like getting lost as I'm explaining it. I looked it up before and apparently like 2% of people have impacted canines, so I'm not like that alone. I think actually a couple of my cousins also had impacted canines, but when you're younger it is possible. It's much easier to bring those canines down using braces. There's this like chain method that slowly brings the adult tooth down. But because I was already an adult when they discovered the impacted canine, the bone or whatever was already like solidified around it, so there was no way to bring it down, and that's why I had to have it removed surgically. So after having that consultation and discovering all of that, that's when I had to decide to get braces and decide that I would close up this gap and not end up getting an implant like I had planned originally, and then remove a tooth here surgically, remove the baby tooth, and get an implant. I'm making a lot of motions. I hope they make sense to you. I also have another baby tooth molar. It's a lower left molar, but that one is not that big of a deal. I didn't have like an adult tooth that I needed to remove for that. I'm gonna have that taken out and put an implant in, because having the baby tooth for the rest of my life is not the best idea, because baby teeth are much weaker than adult teeth for obvious reasons, and it's just not too safe to be holding onto that tooth, because at any point it could like fall out maybe. So that's why I got braces, and I had them on from May 2014 until today, December 2017. It would have been shorter, but because I went abroad to London for a year, my treatment got a little bit extended, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about what I did when I was abroad later in this video. So now I'm just going to answer a few questions regarding my braces, and the first one is, why didn't you get Invisalign? And that's just because with all of the complicated treatment I had, Invisalign wasn't an option. Generally, Invisalign is for much more simple treatments, you know, just like straightening things out or fixing overcrowding or maybe closing gaps could be done with Invisalign as well. But I had a lot more going on, as you have just realized after that whole long explanation of why I got braces. So Invisalign wasn't an option for me, but I did get ceramic brackets on my upper teeth. So those are the like white brackets, which are a bit less noticeable than the metal brackets. I did have metal ones on the bottom just because the bottom teeth don't show as much when you speak, so that's what I opted for. Question number 2, how did you take care of your braces? I just use a regular toothbrush. I know that they have these like kind of pyramid shaped toothbrushes that are good for braces, but I never used those. I just used a regular one, and then I would use a Proxa brush to get between the brackets. I then used a water pick for the majority of my treatment, and a water pick is just like an electric water flosser, and it's much easier to get out, you know, foods that's stuck in the back of your teeth and all of that, because flossing while you have the wires on is really difficult because you have to thread the floss through. Towards the end of my treatment though, flossing with regular floss became much easier because my teeth had straightened out, so the wires were evenly spaced around my teeth. When you first get your braces on, because your teeth are crooked, the wire is kind of closer to some parts of your teeth than it is to others, which makes it more difficult to floss. So very straightforward. You would learn all of this from your orthodontist in terms of taking care of your teeth. What did you do when you went abroad? So I was in London for 12 months, and I did not have a dentist or an orthodontist in London. What I did was I came home just twice during the year. So I came home during the Christmas holiday and Easter holiday, and I got my braces tightened then. So I basically had, from when I moved to London, I moved in September, so I had like 3 months between that appointment and then my appointment in December to tighten my braces. And then my next appointment after December was in April, so about 4 months later. And then my next one after that wasn't until September when I moved back, so that was 5 months later. I had to really make sure I didn't get any breakages in the rubber bands or the brackets during those times, because I had more time between my appointments and I was abroad, so I just took extra care of them and it was all fine. While I was abroad, I did have these Teflon ties on the top brackets. So usually you have rubber bands that keep the wire in place, but I had these steel Teflon ties which are more durable and they don't really stain, so that was much easier to manage the upkeep of than regular rubber bands. So that helped a lot. If that is an option for you, then maybe you could do that if you are planning to be away from your orthodontist for a while. If you're near like the end of your treatment, you probably can't use the Teflon ties, because by then they usually put like a chain rubber band on your teeth to really pull them together and keep them tight. But at the point of treatment that I was in, the Teflon ties were acceptable. And the last question is, how do you stay confident when you have braces? This applies to anyone with braces really. Definitely if you have braces as a teenager, it is hard because it's a time when, you know, your peers' thoughts mean so much and you're like going through all these other changes as well. As an adult, you also have a whole other set of insecurities because it obviously makes you look younger, and then maybe then people won't take you as seriously, especially being in like a business program that I was in. I also look younger like to begin with, so I definitely had times when I felt self-conscious about my braces, but in general, people don't notice your braces that much. And if you just like, if you try to hide it, it gets more noticeable. Like if you just try to like always cover your mouth or anything like that, I find that it could be more noticeable than if you just own it. And yes, like that first impression is hard, but once you get to know people, then like the braces just, you know, kind of fade away. Of course, like for myself, I would notice every little imperfection about my teeth and my braces, but like other people are not looking that closely. And when you're just talking, it's not that noticeable either. It's just more like when you're doing a big laugh or a smile, but at that point, like if everyone's laughing and smiling, nobody's like criticizing or like scrutinizing your teeth. So just like remember those things, that it's not that noticeable and people get over it really quickly, and you probably care about it more than other people do. Another thing is just to really make sure you take care of your braces. I really try to keep them as clean and as like intact as possible, and that way, you know, at least I could get that covered, that I could control. Like having the braces is out of my control, but at least I could take good care of them. So that's it for this video. I'm sure I will be uploading another update in the future once I get the implants placed, because I think that could be helpful for anyone who is going through something similar. Comment below if you also have impacted canines or if you have baby teeth with no adult teeth. I'm very curious. It's probably a really small percentage, but I'd like to know if any of you out there are in a similar situation to me. As always, thanks for watching this video, and I will see you tomorrow. Bye!